Thank you, sir. I want to first thank the panel. You know what? You probably feel today like a lot of flyers, very claustrophobic and waiting for something bad to maybe happen. So thank you for your patience. And my colleagues have done a very good job, I think, in pointing out some problems. And I'm not going to pile on. I want to start by thanking the thousands of professional flight attendants and pilots and the counter people that work in this industry, who do very good jobs and work very hard. And I think what we all can agree, that policies and training make a difference so that they can do their job. So does having a good civil justice system so people can have private recourse. And it doesn't hurt to have a good cell camera when you need one, right? I'm from Florida, South Florida. We had 100 million visitors last year. Many of them took planes. The airline industry creates $1.3 million jobs with a $44.5 million payroll in our state. So we have to get this right. I have 3 questions, and just so that you can answer them, maybe if one of you would try to answer each of these questions. I don't need all of you to answer them, okay? First of all, I'd like to know whether the consumer union folks ever meet with you all and you could sit down and discuss these issues. Number 2, we've talked a lot about overbooking. I'd like to understand what might be the unintended consequences, if any, and how it would affect especially customers if we did not allow overbooking. And then I think a policy that I know really irritates most of us is the rigid change policies, how expensive it is. And I don't understand why in this digital age they have to be so rigid. So if you want to take a shot at those 3 questions.
I think United will take the overbooking one since we've been answering, and Scott's been doing this, so I'll let him do it.
Well, first, Congresswoman, thank you for thanking our employees who, you're right, do a phenomenal job in tough conditions all the time. On overbooking, we use overbooking to take care of thousands of customers that we would otherwise not be able to accommodate. One of the most common uses is in a situation where someone has a delayed or canceled flight, and we will then overbook them, those customers, onto another flight that's currently booked full.
May I just say, what is the number of people who are bumped compared to the number of people who are accommodated because of the overbooking?
So most of our oversales, where we can't accommodate customers, come from operational issues like a weather issue where we can't take a full load of passengers. We at United, about 15% of the time when we actually overbook a flight, do we actually have more customers show up than are on the airplane. And in that situation, 95.6% of the time, we are able to solicit volunteers. So it's really unusual that overbooking creates an involuntary denied boarding, and particularly now that we've gone up to a $10,000 limit on denied boardings, I think we're going to be able to drive that number close to 0. But if we stopped overbooking entirely, there are thousands of customers that we either couldn't sell a ticket to, or that when there is an operational disruption, we couldn't give them another option for how to get home.
Next question.
I can take your question about consumer unions. As you know, the Department of Transportation has a robust consumer protection division that oversees airline issues. They also host a panel with both consumer union members and airlines to get together to discuss issues. So that's a good way that we are able to connect.
Congresswoman, can I add something to that?
Yeah. But I want to get to the rigid change policy, if somebody could. Yeah.
Just a quick aside on the issue that's come up several times, legislation versus self-policing. It should be noted that during the tarmac delay discussions that were so robust a few years ago, I participated on behalf of Consumers Union at a meeting organized by Senator Boxer, and every airline in the United States was invited, as well as the largest airline trade organization, and not one representative showed up. For me, that was a turning point for Consumers Union. They were invited to discuss a serious consumer issue, and they didn't even come. The chairman today noted that some of the airlines that were invited to this hearing didn't come. So I think that speaks volumes.
And on the rigid change policy.
I can take that question. I had answered it earlier as well. Airlines offer a variety of products to meet differing needs of consumers, and some consumers put a priority on buying the lowest fare and are willing to buy a restricted ticket in order to get that fare, while other customers know they need more flexibility and they prefer to buy a non-refundable fare. So the change fee is something that is basically a way to offer some measure of flexibility when people buy a non-refundable ticket. With a change fee, we do allow some flexibility there. So that's the purpose of change fees.
All right.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woodall.